Thanks so much and welcome back. I do apologize for putting this video out a little bit later than usual, but the lights have just come back on here on the East Coast. We just made it through Storm Sandy, which was a devastating storm for much of this community, and there have been many homes, cars, and businesses destroyed. And in the midst of the storm, I started thinking about relationships and how many relationships would weather this storm or be taken out by the storm. When Storm Sandy hit, I was certainly going through some of my own life storms. My sister had just passed away a week before Storm Sandy hit of cancer. I then found myself sitting in the dark in my living room, 8 months pregnant. And again, you know, the thought came to me that it's not the rescue workers that are going to save me or get me out of this. It's really going to be the quality of my relationships, number one, and my internal reserves. The internal reserves were there, and I thank God every day that the quality relationships were there as well. Could your relationships weather the storm? Not just Storm Sandy, but the storms that come through in life. Could they weather it, or would you need to go it alone? That's the question and the topic that I want to deal with today. And I know that there's a lot of people that have bought out of their relationships, and the thought process is, you know, it's too hard, I can do this myself. Well, you know what? Wolves and human beings have something in common. We're all social creatures, pack animals. A wolf can go it alone too, but guess what? If he does, he's 90% more vulnerable, and he only has a 10% chance of survival. So I'm here to tell you our relationships are important when things are going great in our lives, but they're even more important when things happen and the rug gets pulled out from under us. So I want to talk about 4 things that you can do if you haven't thought about this to make sure that your relationships are storm-proof. The people that you care about in your life, whether that's your friends, colleagues, co-workers, there's a way to shore up those relationships and make sure that when things happen in life and you need those reserves and those extra supports, that they're going to be there. So the first point I want to make is to build your relationships on the sunny days. Don't wait until a storm rips through your life, literally or figuratively, because the time to build meaningful relationships is not in the midst of devastation. It's when the weather is nice and things are good, and those communications can be very simple. And how do you do that? We live in a fast-paced world. Is very, very busy, and I hear more and more people complaining, it's just hard for me to stay in touch. It's just hard for me to reach out and make that time. Folks, we live in the greatest technological age of all time. Between emails, between snail mails, sending notes, Skype, there's a multitude of ways to stay connected, and you can really do it efficiently. You know, you can have things like a Skype party, you know, take time, you know, twice a year to send out notes, a text message, how you doing? The point of the matter is, when it comes to relationships, you cannot and you should not expect to make any massive withdrawal when you haven't done submitted any deposits. Building relationships is like doing business with Chase Bank or Wells Fargo. It's a luxury to dip in to that account when you need it and know the savings are there, but that takes maintenance. That takes attention. So, this is not a great leap, but relationship maintenance and management, it absolutely counts. Our relationships are built on respect and reciprocity. And anyone that tells you different, they don't know the facts. If you have a pet dog or cat, run an experiment. Stop feeding them for a couple weeks and see how those cuddle sessions go for you. It's all based on give and take. So make your deposits when the weather is good, and that's going to strengthen your relationships when the storms come through. Point number 2 is to avoid being a fair weather friend. Now, my grandfather, God rest his soul, told me once that if you want to know who your supporters are, and if you want to know who your friends are, you need to do 2 things. You need to look to your left and look to your right when you have tremendous success happening in your life, or you're going through a tragedy and have tremendous failure or upset in your life. The folks who are standing to your left and your right, in both instances, those are the folks who are on your ship. And those are the relationships that you invest that time and energy and that warmth in cultivating and nurturing. Because folks, I'll tell you, fair weather friends are just that. They're there when the weather is good and when you're setting sail, when the rubber meets the road. The rubber meets the road and the bricks start falling. Fair weather is not where you want to go. So in order to sustain those kind of relationships and cultivate those kind of relationships that are going to be there for both circumstances, you have to be that kind of person. And then you will find that you attract the same thing to you. Number 3, cut them a break and realize they're not psychic. Who are they? They are the people in our lives, the people we share our time with, the people we share our energy with. I am stunned and amazed the number of folks who will summarily cut relationships off. Snip, snip. Long-standing relationships because an issue or a conflict comes up that they haven't even talked about. And it's stunning. It can be a lifetime of good memories, good cheer, and I didn't like what you did, and this is the process I'm running it through. So it's over. I had a lady in my office a couple weeks ago. She said, I'm done. I'm ready to quit my job. I need more responsibility. It's stagnant. It's boring. I'm treated like a child. My next question was, have you talked to your superiors to find out if there's some tweaking that can be done in terms of responsibility? And she kind of looked at me with a blank stare. Well, no, I haven't talked to them. That's just common sense. They should know that. Well, common sense in this day and age is not so common. It's so important to learn to get your needs met with simple, basic communication. It just goes like this. I want to sit down with you and check out a perception that I'm having. I could be wrong. I don't know. But either way, I want to check it out before I jump to conclusions, because conclusions can get us in a lot of trouble. And you know what they say about assumptions can make it ASSS of you and me. We live in a very complex world. Emotions run high, and where you may see something one way, another person sees a completely different way. So let's not skip that step of communication and checking it out to preserve our relationships. Now, on the other end, someone may say, well, Sheila, I tried to communicate with this person. I try to talk it out. I can't sit and talk to them. They get irrational. They jump up. They storm out. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you have any relationship in your life, whether it's work, whether it's personal, if you cannot talk it out, rationally and come together for solutions, if you can't talk it out, you may need to consider then walking out. Why? Because communication and problem solving, that is the stability, that is the underbelly of all our relationships. And if you have a relationship that you can't do that, you're always going to feel like you're on shaky ground. You're going to be tiptoeing around on eggshells and scared to death that the rug is just going to be pulled from underneath you. That is no way to have a relationship, certainly a relationship that you're trying to design to weather the storms of life. So communication is king, first, last, and always. And fourth step is to always consider your investment. It's really to track your investment. I'm a firm believer that all relationships are just based on one thing. It's not what people tell you, because verbal, that's the weakest form of communication. You know, we can say anything and it just rolls off the tongue. But the energy exchange and the action and what people do, that's what you pay attention to. It's based on pure energy exchange. And if you're running around and you're doing everything and there's no energy coming back at you, there's no gratitude, there's no reciprocity, the reason I say you need to reassess that situation and maybe, pull back substantially or do some different things to bring some equilibrium is because those kind of relationships and one-sided affiliations will exhaust you. And the other piece is when those storms blow through. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I've lived this. When those storms blow through, those relationships that you have made these weighty investments in are not going to be there. And you can't get the investment of your resources back. So I'm telling you to check it out up front and monitor it. You know when energy is coming back at you. You know what feels right. You know what feels wrong. Follow your intuition. Follow your gut instinct and trust and believe in that. And in terms of rounding everything out, the last thing I want to talk about is your expectations. You have to peel back the layer on all of your relationships and ask yourself a real question. Are my expectations of what I want or what I need and what I'm getting from this relationship, are my expectations in line with what is realistic and reasonable? Let's face it, you're going to have some people in your life, like I have some people in my life. They're wonderful. We go out for coffee every other month, and there's value in that for me. But I know that that's a relationship, that's where it ends and begins. That's like a social chit-chat type thing, and that's wonderful. And there's other relationships that those are my deeper, more life-sustaining relationships that those expectations are higher, those relationships are more meaningful. I invest more in those because certainly I'm getting more out of them. So, you can't have every relationship in your life on the same tier because you're going to constantly find yourself disappointed. So when you walk in fair expectation and when you really understand what your level of investment is, what you're putting in, what kind of energy is coming back at you, it really makes for a happier life because people who have great relationships live longer. They're just more happy, able to sustain themselves better. It really makes for a well-rounded life, which is definitely what I want for you. So I hope the information that I shared today gives you some things to think about in terms of your relationships and your investment and the capacity that those relationships have to weather the storms of life that come through. Thank you so much. See you next time.